I'd like to bring to order the March 30th Town Council special meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Leona.
Councilor Souza?
Present.
Councilor Perry?
Present.
Councilor Mello?
Present.
Councilor Lambert?
Present.
Councilor DiMederos?
Present.
Councilor Shabbat? Present. Councilor Pelletier?
Yes, ma'am.
All present.
Number 2 on the agenda, building zoning official position. I placed that on there. I thought that we may have had a problem with that, but it has since resolved, so we don't need any discussion.
You sure?
Positive. The personnel boards will be doing interviews tomorrow. Cynthia,
What was the problem?
explain it later. Cynthia Avenue, discussion and possible vote on determination of ownership and town services. Street committee recommendation. Mr. Berlucci, you can speak first, and then I'll have this. The street committee cannot make a recommendation. They do not have a quorum because of the amount of members on the committee that live on Cynthia Avenue or are associated with Cynthia Avenue. So that's why it's come to us.
Thank you very much. This is more or less a continuation for a couple of years that addresses just Cynthia Avenue. It came about because Cynthia Avenue wasn't being maintained by the owners as it had been in the past, and it became so impassable that we could not drive down it with our plows or emergency vehicles or rubbish trucks. I think a few of you took a ride out there and witnessed that, and it was really impassable. It had been maintained in the past by the owners. It's a 2-lane gravel road that hasn't been accepted. It doesn't have any drainage, any lights, and we have been maintaining it for the last 2 years based on council meetings in the past. A lot of research has been done, right in Nancy's office, as to trying to locate any kind of documentation that proved that the town council had accepted Cynthia Avenue for maintenance purposes. None was found. What we did found is some planning board notes in which the developer at the particular time addressed the planning board and wished to keep the road private and did not want it deeded to the town.
How long ago was that?
I would say 60s. I wanna say,
1975.
yeah, when it was developed. Okay, it was quite a while ago. It was before the current regulations regarding acceptance of roads that the new planning board operates under now. I feel this fell under at a point in time in which if the plat was presented from the planning board and accepted, it was accepted as town property, more or less. But the second part of that has always been, even prior and even now, that the town council has to accept it for maintenance purposes for us to maintain the roadway itself. It's part of our town ordinances, and that's where the sticking lies. I have a town ordinance that really says that I should not be maintaining these roads, yet they're falling apart and they're unaccepted, and who does repair them and bring them up to a condition that's acceptable for services? So I'm up here not to stop services on Cynthia Ave, but really we've come to a point where a decision has to be made whether the owners, since it's an unaccepted street, have to bring it up to a condition where we can provide those services, or now is the town going to be rebuilding roads that are unaccepted to provide services that they are now receiving. So it's a dilemma. There's going to be 120 roads like this. This Cynthia Avenue is the first. Councilor Lambert asked me to do a little survey on what it would cost to bring all of the unaccepted roads up to an acceptable level, and I come up with about $1.5 million, and that would just be to grind them off and pave them. It wouldn't include drainage, survey, engineering. We don't know what the roads are made of. We've come across Bay Street issues where we've dug in roads and found contaminated waste, so this is just the tip of the iceberg, and it really is the first case in which we've been up in front of you where the owners and abutters are disputing it. So that's it, how I can wrap up Cynthia Avenue. It's a broad issue, but under my budget, as you know, it's pretty well strained, and I cannot take care of all of these unaccepted streets when I don't have really enough money to take care of our accepted streets, and that's my dilemma also, so that's where we're at.
Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Oh, yes, I would, please, thank you. Good evening, thank you for having me.
Pull that other one down.
Oh, this one, okay. Just getting the protocols.
Well, maybe.
Let's see, as long as I don't touch it, it should be fine. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Yes, please. My name is Patrick Doherty. I'm an attorney licensed here in Rhode Island. My offices are at 887 Boston Neck Road in the town of Narragansett, although I was commenting on how beautiful this town is when I was coming in here, so who knows, that could be subject to change. I've been here a number of times as well. I see some familiar faces and some new ones here. I've done quite a bit of research with respect to Cynthia Avenue, and I've also received research results from other people. And I can state I disagree from a legal perspective as to what the status is with Mr. Bellucci. There is a wealth of records contained in the town hall and also in some of the DPW records that were obtained that would lend credence to the assertion that it is a town-accepted road. The property itself, there are a number of plats that reference Cynthia Avenue, and they were duly recorded in the town land, and property was sold with respect to that, and properties were built up. The town in the past has actually paved Cynthia Avenue. We have people here who were witnesses to that. The town has actively maintained up until several years ago, well, more than several now, this has been going on, has maintained it. The town council granted permission to the electric company to put lights on Cynthia Avenue, and there are lights and poles and lines there now existing. The electric company had to apply to the town for permission, and the town council took that up at a meeting and duly voted to grant them permission on what they held out as town property, namely Cynthia Avenue. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had to give permission to do that. There are a number of other things in the record, in town records. Cynthia Avenue was included in plowing lists of the town streets here in the town. In addition to that, there were a number of other town records that certainly support the assertion and my conclusion that it is a town-accepted road. There's a couple of different ways, and I'm not giving you the advice that you defer to your counsel. They're very able. I've dealt with them in other cases and whatnot. And there are a number of ways for the towns to accept the street as public, and I believe your prior council had even concurred that at the very least that there was a dedication of Cynthia Avenue to the public. Mr. Tights, I believe, had stopped short and asserted that it was not accepted by the town, and he begged to differ with me on that. Again, I'm not aware of whether or not he had all the records that I have, but I have a binder full of records from the town hall. I have planning board minutes, I have town council minutes, I have recorded plats, the deeds. Apparently, there's been an assertion that Mr. Brian Sanford owns Cynthia Avenue. His deed doesn't say that. None of the other, with respect to the deeds, there are some ambiguities and some of the the property owners that front on Cynthia Avenue were granted they were subject to any easements, rights of way and whatnot, if any. That's generally standard language in a lot of deeds to protect the grantor from any title claims that may arise out of their ownership during the period and their liability to the grantee. But I can tell you that the town ordinance prohibits the town from listing unaccepted private streets on plats, and that's not the case with Cynthia Avenue. Cynthia Avenue is listed in there. An ordinance, I believe, was passed in 1961, prohibited the town from listing the private streets on town, or here it is, in 1961, it stated that private streets and driveways shall not be shown on a plat. And it certainly is clear that Cynthia Avenue is on a plat. We have evidence dating back to the prior DPW, well, probably a couple prior DPW directors. There's a deposition transcript from Mr. Farias, Joseph Farias, who his deposition was taken on June 5th of 1991, and he describes what actually transpired, not specifically with regard to Cynthia Avenue, but with the town's treatment of a number of roads that were quasi-public, private, and the town's treatment of them. I believe that with respect to Cynthia Avenue, the cow's out of the barn. It's been out for a long time, and you have a number of residents out there that, bought their homes, built their homes in reliance on this being a town-accepted street. I think without exception, any title rundown that was done for each of these landowners found that it was on a public street. The town records, again, assert dominion and control by granting permission to put lights and lines and poles in Cynthia Avenue, the town's assertion of ownership or acknowledgement of ownership of that. If it were a private street and the town had not accepted it, they wouldn't be given permission to do that. There are a number of other documents that are contained within town records, and I'd be more than happy to share them with the council, that definitely refute what is being asserted in terms of this town, this road being a private road. And in addition to that, the town ordinance, 42301 and 32408, was passed, and it stated affirmatively that the town shall provide no services such as trash pickup, road sealing, or plowing, or road maintenance on any unaccepted street or road. Well, that's been done. So the town now, and I understand cities and towns all over the country are being hit with budgetary constraints, and there's a loss of revenue, increasing, skyrocketing prices for operating things. But I would implore you, prior to taking any action with respect to this, if you're looking to cut these people off of town services and treat this as an unaccepted street, I would implore you to at least look at what I have here. I'd be more than happy to go. I could go on for an hour explaining specifically in detail each and every one of these documents, and I'd be happy to do that right now. But I do dispute very strenuously that Cynthia Avenue is anything other than a public town-accepted road by use and acceptance of the public during its tenure here. But if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
May I just read one thing? The DPW did not pave Cynthia Avenue, and I think it was just stated that we did. There's no records, and none of my men who've been there for 28 years remember the town paving Cynthia Avenue.
It was prior to 28 years ago.
Well, that's okay, prior to 28 years ago. And what I
believe, Mr. Sanford, I believe you said it was 1969 that the road was paved.
Yeah, around 68.
Hang on, 1968? I thought we just established that 1975 is when the subdivision occurred.
Well, no, there were a number of subdivisions. There were a number of plots.
I hate to jump in. Just looking at the deeds, I think of four
No, I'm sorry, this was blocking your face.
I picked up four different subdivisions for this Cynthia Avenue area. There's one from 1958, which was the predicate one. We've got another one from 1979. One that I need to take a look at, still in Plan Book 10, page 8, undated. And also a portion of this area was subdivided in February 22nd, 1973. I have the listings. We took a look at some, but didn't get to see all of them before the meeting. I think it's important to take a look at those. And just to jump ahead, and I hate to cut Mr. Doherty off, but we've reviewed the deeds. Some of the deeds reference their frontage on Cynthia Avenue. Others do have the language that he mentioned, that there's some type of easement language in here subject to easements of record, the right to pass and repass. That shows up on 4 of the deeds. So this is anything to me but a clear-cut issue. That's the first thing. I do think some more research needs to be done. I'd like to have every research that you have, we'll take a look at that. Also, and this isn't something that the town is entitled to ask, but I'd appreciate it if any of your clients wouldn't mind sharing their owner's title policies with us. I'd like to take a look at them, and I'm wondering what is contained in those, because I think that's very relevant. There's 2 issues here that need to be addressed. The first is whether or not at some point Cynthia Avenue was officially accepted by the town. You've got 2 things going on here. The first is, as Mr.
Bellucci, yeah.
has said, there's no, and I couldn't find any, not that I really looked hard, an official town council acceptance of this road. Can't find it, not there. However, Mr. Wojcik was kind enough to send me the ordinance that was in effect back into the 60s about the recordation of these plats and whether or not the roads on the plats are considered public roads. They are, except not for maintenance purposes. That needs to be fleshed out a little bit. But I do think it's something that needs to be addressed and answered on this. The one thing I did pick up, the main subdivision was from 1958. And it seemed to me that original subdivision carried over into these others and was relied upon for the other subdivisions. The length of Cynthia Avenue does not match up with what's in your packet. And I think that's something else that needs to be taken a look at from a survey standpoint. These are all issues that need to be addressed. I apologize for not having more definitive answers for them. But that's one part of it. Question number 1 is, did the town accept it at some point by official act, town council resolution, or by the fact that the plats were approved and recorded? That's category 1. If I understand Mr. Doherty's memo, which I did have a chance to see, not his backup, but the memo itself, he's arguing not so much on that part, but he's saying that because the town treated Cynthia Avenue over the years as a public road, that it becomes a public road, even though there's no official act by the town council. There is case law that supports that. My only question from taking a look at what was in the file that was given to me is whether or not the acts of the town have risen to that level that is a full acceptance. I really need more information on that. I didn't think that what was contained in the file was sufficient to say, yes, it's given up to that level. So there's a lot of loose ends here, but there are loose ends that can be tied up and tied up quickly. I think with just a little extra research, some more information being provided, and I think we can get a definitive answer for you either way. It may well be that this is in fact a public road. It may be. But not with what you have now. I think you really need some more information, and that's information that can be obtained.
And again, I'll make a copy of everything that I have in this, provided these are public records and some other additional historical ones. I'd be happy to provide them.
So how long would you need to, I know,
When's your next workshop? Actually, I think it's going to take a couple of weeks. I don't know if you want to put this on for a regular session or...
we could put it for a regular session, just doing Cynthia Avenue with all the research. We won't do it next Monday, but 2 weeks from then.
Okay.
If that would be possible, if you want to do that.
Yeah, what we managed to do is identify the additional records we need from your land evidence records on that. That's the first thing. I'm sure Mr. Doherty will just ship that stuff right over that he has as quickly as possible. If he can get those owner's title policies, I really appreciate it. That's going to be
Again, I only have 2 clients here on this, but I think I do have an email list when we had an agreement, an informal agreement with the town. I'll send out an email and request that, and I'll get those over to you as well.
Again, that's not something that we can really ask for, but if you volunteer and give it out, that'll help us out. Once we get those things, we'll be able to give you a definitive either way.
Attorney DeSisto has only been with us less than a week and a half, and he's had a lot on his plate. So, they've done a lot of work on this, but I did think that they probably would need a little bit more time.
And you had mentioned a couple of weeks from next Monday.
So it would be
20th, is that what you're referring to?
27th would be our next, yeah.
All right, that's fine. Thank
And
you.
we'll just put it as a regular item. So I would need to continue this to, is it 22nd? 27th. If it's all right with the council, we'll have other people speak just to get more information.
Do you have any questions of me?
No, just get all that to Attorney DeSisto, and that would be perfect.
Copy the clerk, make sure the clerk has it on.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Just the list that was provided to us, with the different roads.
Okay, yeah.
How many of these roads have streetlights if the town planned for electricity on?
There are a few that have streetlights.
So there are other streets where the town accepted streetlights. And those, I know these two are basically all in the front, so you can't say a subdivision.
When I came here, those request slips from the electric company would come every day for someone that wanted to put in a light or extend them. And I just signed them automatically. It really had nothing to do with ownership. It just, for some reason, they all came to the DPW.
Basically, with this power lines coming down the road, but doesn't the town accept the responsibility to pay that bill? That's under our...
If it's an accepted road, we do, but not an unaccepted road.
All right, so, all right, okay.
Okay?
All right.
If it's accepted road, we pay for the bill, once the town council accepted it.
So if it's a private road, you would, even if it's a private road, you would sign it,
I would
but
sign
the
it.
village would be to the...
When we wanted to ask for the light in the first place, you know.
Thank you.
Just one comment, Joe. Since I built the road that my house is on, and I did have a utility pole put in, and I had to sign for it, not the town, because it was on private property.
Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, most of you know who I am. James Engel, I live at 40 Cynthia Avenue. Everybody knows who I am, except for a few people. I purchased my home on Cynthia Avenue in 1997. I've been a resident there since. As long as I've lived here, I've always had trash pickup in front of my house, snow plowing services including sanding. There has always been street lights and maintenance done by the town, including filling potholes by the town of Tiverton. For example, a tree fell down across the road. I called the town, they came down, they cut the tree down. DPW always did whatever we called up, they wanted potholes filled, they come down with copaint material, fill the potholes in. For over the years, on several occasions, the road was in need of repair, anybody would call up, they'd come down and fix it. Approximately 5 to 6 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago now, things changed. All of our services continued except the maintenance of the road. Myself, along with several other residents, would call the Department of Public Works, and we were told that it was a private road. Nothing was ever said before about this being a private road. We would call up, they'd come down and fix it. and without due. Now the road became so bad that they didn't want to fix it anymore. So when the road was in good condition, there was no question. Just come down and fix it. But when it got so bad they couldn't fix it, it needed to be paved. It was a private road. Several phone calls were made to the town hall, as well as residents stopping by the town hall to find out why suddenly we couldn't have the potholes filled. We voiced our concern to DPW Director Stephen Belushi on several occasions, and we got absolutely nowhere. On May of 2013, I made a couple of phone calls to Stephen Belushi expressing the severity and the condition of the road. I expressed how I could not drive on the road without hitting potholes because they were so large. They went from one side of the road to the other side of the road. A whole car could fit in them. Some of you have driven down there and saw the size of them. He said, nothing I can do, the road is private. I stated to him, how can we receive all the other town services except maintenance when it's been done for years? The road is private. I questioned Mr. Bucci as to why Swordy Pond, a non-town accepted road, was receiving repairs and services to the road by the town when it has not been accepted yet. No explanation was given except that it would be cheaper for the residents to fix the roads ourselves than hire an attorney. At this time, I began to do some research. I contacted Richard Jennings, the family I purchased my house from. They confirmed to me that during the 38 years of living on Cynthia Ave, it was always maintained by the town of Tiverton. I have a notarized letter from Mr. Jennings. And pass out some copies. I have the original here. I also have a notarized letter from Peter LaChapelle. I have the original here, it's notarized. He lived there from 85 to 94. He's well known in this town, and the town always maintained, it says right on it, maintained road. I also have a copy of the plow list with Cynthia Ave on it. I also have a copy of the rubbish collection route, and it also states the private roads on it. I'm not sure if I have enough to go around there. If you look on that plow list, on the rubbish collection list, the private roads are listed private.
Please look over your route if you...
Here I have the meeting minutes from 7/19/2011. Town Council President Lambert briefly discussed the current mix of accepted public roads, paper streets, unaccepted roads, and private roads, and inquired about the town's right and responsibility to maintain the roads that had not been accepted. Town Solicitor Pike stated it was too late to close the door on some of the public roads in town, opinion that as long as the town has been allowing building to occur on these roads, it's the town's responsibility to be sure that the roads are passable for emergency vehicles, and suggested it would be better to fix the underlying problems. This here is a document from 1960 from Narragansett Electric showing the town sign for 4 telephone poles on Cynthia Avenue. This is a petition from 1974. The town signed again for 2 more poles. This here is a letter from Andrew Tights, town solicitor, to Nancy Mello and James Gonzalo, recommended that the town not sign for street poles as they do not own the land. That's on a different street, but that's just to show that they shouldn't sign if it's not their property. This is a letter. It's meeting minutes from 5/21/1964. It was noted that Campion Ave, a non-accepted town street at the time, it was recommended that something be done to improve the condition of the street, and that Mr. Rose of the town council spoke on behalf of the highway DPW that it would be asphalted that year. This is a statement of Sawley Pond Road. All the drainage and pavement went in the northern portion, and was not accepted at this time. This here, the Rhode Island State Supreme Court has ruled that once a plot is filed and the lots are sold, it negates the premises of it being a private road. I don't have any copies of this. Take a look at it if you want. I'll make copies of it if you like. And last, I have, this is a statement about Westernolo Drive, and was noted that there is more to this problem, and some 90 streets are to be determined for status, not the fault of the residents, fault of the town from the 1980s for failing to find developers to pay and take care of these roads. I do have my deed, but I'm not sure what you're looking for. My deed does not say anything about it. What is it you're looking for? When you say you're looking
May I
for?
ask a question? You don't happen to know your assessors plat lot number, do you?
I do. It should be 111 and 113.
Okay. I asked you for your, if you don't mind, a copy of your owner's title policy.
I'm not sure what a owner's title policy
When you
is.
close on your property,
Yep.
your bank is going to require that you get a mortgagee's title policy, but oftentimes you can get an owner's title policy for yourself. That ensures you if there's any defects in your title that weren't disclosed or discovered at the time you had your closing. Oftentimes on Schedule B, there is title information that would be very helpful in just solving this issue. And it's a good indication as to what the state of the title is and what the status of Cynthia Avenue would be.
Now, would I contact the bank for that, or?
You should have it in...
I should have it?
Should have it in your file if you have it. If you don't mind taking a look for it.
I will take a look for it, yep. In early spring 2012, I received a letter from the town of Tiverton asking me to attend the street committee meeting. That's how long this has been going on. Because Cynthia Ave was a street that was not accepted by the town. The residents of Cynthia Ave attended, however, nothing was determined at that time. We attended another meeting and another meeting, and after that, which nothing was determined. The last meeting was held on May 10th, 2012, and we have heard nothing since that date. However, I have learned that on February 11th, 2013, there was a reorganization of the street committee due to the committee not meeting town charter. And it didn't meet town charter. Therefore, we thought our street would be revisited as well as the other streets because the previous committee recommendations would be null and void. On December 3rd, I heard nothing after that. On December 3rd, 2013, I received a certified letter from the DPW Director, Stephen Bellucci, that stated unless we, the residents, grade and fix our road, we will not be receiving plow services. How is it that we haven't even had a street committee meeting in a year and a half because the street committee was dissolved and we get notification by certified mail that our plowing services will cease the first week in December, right before the first snowfall? Since our plow services were stopped, the road has become a safety issue. We have had thousands of trucks stuck on the road due to icy conditions, kids waiting at the bus stop standing on ice, and cars pulling onto the road from Crandall Road, not aware of the icy conditions until it began to slide. Also pulling off Cynthia Ave onto Crandall Road is a very icy and dangerous situation. There's a corner there, and people go pretty fast by there. One of the residents of Cynthia Ave, who is a veteran, has prescriptions delivered to his home for a medical condition. That week, his prescriptions did not arrive because the mail truck couldn't get down and deliver. Do we feel like we're being discriminated? Absolutely. This is unacceptable for the amount of taxes we pay, and we are being treated unfairly. On Tuesday, December 10th, it was noted in the Newport Daily News that Stephen Bellucci said the department had never serviced the road. If this was the case, why did we receive a certified letter that our power services were going to be stopped? In my opinion, I provided, there is no indication that Cynthia Ave is anything but town-accepted road and should be kept to drivable conditions by the town. Myself and all the other residents want our property rights restored. This has been going on way too long.
Now, wasn't it in 2013 where we fixed it? You came to us.
This is the meeting, this is what I put together for that meeting.
Right.
But everybody wasn't here at the time, so I'm
Right.
letting everybody know how long this has been going on.
Well, at that time you came to us and then we did repair it and
We did
plow it.
repair it after this meeting that I read this to you.
Right,
And
okay.
it's been kept halfway decent since,
It's been plowed all this winter
all this time it's
also.
been plowed.
Grade it
We
twice a
graded it.
year, is that the?
Twice a year, they've been grading it. I mean,
Okay.
Cynthia Rao, I have pictures of it.
I went down there.
If you'd like to see that. I have some pictures of it showing it was paved, because it's not paved anymore. It got wet so bad from the town not taking care of it, that it's a dirt road now. These are pictures when I bought my house,
Any questions for
and
me?
you can see it's paved clearly.
Any questions from the council?
Because we keep referring it to it as a dirt road, and it clearly wasn't a dirt road.
When did the pavement disappear?
The pavement disappeared roughly in 1988 when the town stopped maintaining it.
So the next time a grader went over, it just basically picked all the gravel.
Yeah.
Asphalt.
If you,
I was wondering how 5 or 6 inches asphalt disappeared off of the road, where did it go?
Probably underneath.
it's underneath there. Actually, if you dig in my yard, 98, about 1998, it started really deteriorating.
Chief, what's the rough year of these photographs?
If you go down.
I'm gonna say those are like 97 when I bought my house.
All I see is gravel and now,
It's all is gravel now, and now the grade has been down there and dug it all
basically
up.
it's been built up over the top of the old road.
Up until the grader just went down there the last time he graded it, you could just clear off a spot in front of my house, and you could see the pavement.
In front of my house, there's people.
All right, so it's been pushed over the top.
Yeah, it's been pushed over the top.
In front of I'm Nicole Robinson, I live at 37 Cynthia Avenue. In front of our house, if you actually go out on the road, there is pavement that you can see. You have to look for it, but it's there.
Not anymore. The grader went down there, it dug it
Oh.
it dug it
That's
all
it,
up.
I've been up and down that road a dozen times, I haven't.
Well, it was there, and we bought our house in 2004. I would have never bought it if I knew it was a private road. Never signed a private road affidavit at our closing. There's nothing in our documents. I worked in real estate for years, looked at our title. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. I would have never bought a property that I would have to maintain a road. we barely can afford to live in this town anymore based on the price of taxes and everything. It's ridiculous, and I would never have bought somewhere where I actually need to maintain a road. It's horrible. When we moved here for the schools and the quaintness and the niceness of the town, and now I lost all faith in Tiverton. Sorry.
Thank you. Anything else from the council?
I just have one question. You mentioned that, and that maybe you lost me a little bit, 6 years ago is when your services stopped?
6 years, roughly about 8 years ago now. It was 6 years ago when I wrote this paper, but it was roughly about 8 years ago now.
What kind of services stopped?
The maintenance of the road, that's all it stopped.
Complete maintenance of the road.
Except for the maintenance of the road.
But yet I'm hearing that we went down there and we've graded that road.
Just since the last 2 meetings,
So we've only did that once,
We have an agreement.
we've done it for 2 years.
for 2 years.
The town council has an agreement with the residents to grade the street twice a year, once before, once after, roughly, Steve?
Well, we did it once just to make it passable 2 winters ago, and we came back 2 winters ago in the spring, and this year we went and graded it in the fall.
It was good for a year. I think we renewed it, I've forgotten when. I feel like it was around December, November or something, we renewed the agreement for another year.
Okay, Mr. Belucci, how long have you been the DPW director?
7.5 years.
Thank you.
My name is Cody Medeiros. I live on 30 Cynthia Avenue, and I actually came up to make the statement that Mr. Pelletier made last year at the meeting that Shane was talking about, that we had to sign paperwork stating that we weren't going to say, okay, this one grading meant that the town's going to take it further. This issue still had to be talked about. And a couple things actually came out of that meeting that I wanted to bring to your attention. I'm not sure if you guys realize that the town lawyer at the time, Mr. Tights, failed to send the letters to the residents of the street to sign. A resident of the street had to have a lawyer get the letters and write them up. So Mr. Tights never sent us the letters. We had to have one of the residents of the street had their own lawyer write them up and send them to Mr. Tights to verify. Secondly, before that meeting, I believe the day before that meeting, someone in the town changed the plat where it shows the street as a separate entity. They changed it so that the end line of the street was attached to the parts shop in the back. So maybe early December, the plat showed Cynthia Avenue as separate, the plat map showed it as separate, and then a day before the meeting, on the town's website, the plat had that line magically disappeared. And I wanted to bring that to the town's attention as well.
Was that on the online GIS?
Yeah.
Those, just for the record, are not actual, they're not, the maps that are in Town Hall, the physical hard copies are the actual sort of legal paperwork. The stuff that's on the GIS is not as reliable, and it's typically not done, it's not managed
Well, I mean,
by the town.
I just wanted to bring to your attention that it was the right way, and then they changed the line, and I believe it's back to that way again. Also, if you, at the beginning of Cynthia Avenue, pavement's clearly visible. Right at the beginning of the street, you can see it.
I've
So,
seen it.
I mean, that's all, I just wanted
You
to
have
give
to
you
really
a...
look, but I
Yeah.
saw it when I went
So
down.
it was there, and I mean, I've only owned the house for about 5 years, 5.5 years now, but it's been in my family since 1970, and ever since my mother was a child, ever since I was a child going to my grandfather's house, who owned 30 Cynthia Avenue before me, the road has always been maintained, there's never been potholes like it is now. And ever since I've owned the house, the road's been horrendous. So, just, thank you.
Thank you.
For those councilors that weren't here at that meeting, the residents had got a letter that all services were going to stop. We decided to do that action because it was winter, it was the beginning of winter. And
I was in,
we were, right, and we were,
over there.
all right, okay.
I had some questions.
Go ahead.
All right, so, it's fresh. Your trash is picked up in front of your house?
Yes, it is.
You have a mailbox in front of your house?
I do not.
Where are your mailboxes?
at the end of the road.
All right, so they're down on,
Yep, on Crandall Road.
all right, and there's street lights?
Two streetlights, three streetlights.
So the only really mailboxes are not down?
Yep, that's the only thing is
Post
mailbox.
office delivers down the end of the road.
And it does have a 40-foot layout.
Yeah.
You probably couldn't pave it 40 foot, but you could make it 24 foot, you know?
Well, I just, from my own personal to you, I think even if the town accepted the road, the chances of getting paved anytime soon. But I'm just wondering, I mean, we pick up the trash down there, we have street lights down there, providing services, plowing. So the only thing we're talking about adding is grading a couple of times a year until, like, when we finally get money back in our budget for paving. So it just seems to me that for public, if they have to get an ambulance down there for that veteran we were talking about, when the street's not plowed, we're putting our firefighters at least at risk, we had talked about that. So I'm wondering, there shouldn't be, I know we're talking about adding money to the town budget, but we're also talking about people that are paying the same taxes that I am. You know?
We are plowing it though, Joe.
I agree, and what I'm thinking is that, I'm wondering if there's some status where it's a public way, but it's not accepted. Is there some graying area in there where the town is, the only reason I'm saying is what Chief, we talked about with fire and police, about the public safety issue for the plowing and things like that, and, you know, our ambulance getting stuck in a pothole or a bomb crater, basically, it's things like that, so I'm just wondering if we need some kind of a policy. This is basically, we're gonna rent that grader in the summer for a week or whatever it takes, and just do the roads that we have to do that, you know, I mean, it just seems we need to do it. Instead of fighting or trying to wait on a bunch of legal opinions, maybe it's just easier to adopt a policy and try to fit it into our budget, and just get something done for the private roads. I realize they're private roads, and we're not talking about like there's one road that's basically just a driveway. A lot of the ones that are on the list, they look like subdivisions.
And that's where we are right now, I think. And the distinction is, we only have that mechanism to accept a road. It has to meet town standards, and that's what has been really the thing that drags a lot of these kind of gray area streets, the ones previously, is when we accept these roads, they don't meet town standards, so what do we do with them? Do we accept them as a town road now? They don't meet the standards, there's no drainage, there's no pavement, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we are now. I mean, it's taken a long time for us to get here because we didn't have the legwork able to be done by the street committee like we had hoped. So now that's what hopefully we'll be getting a lot of the research done in-house. And
One second.
The comment I had was picking up on what Joe said. I've listened to the speakers, and I think we all sympathize with the situation. But as I'm listening to this, I'm told that, well, streetlights may have some significance. Lots are sold, the location of the mailbox, repairs are made, potholes are filled, trash is picked up. There may or may not be plowing. And all of this is significant as to whether the town has an obligation at this point to accept these unaccepted roads. My concern has always been, and this goes back a year or two, we have a lot of streets that are in this position. I don't know how many Steve has identified for me. I've asked for about 4 different reports, and Steve is always nice enough to give me these reports. I know one report, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that there were 164 unaccepted streets in the town. We're not talking about just one street. What I'd like to see, and I know we can't do this tonight, this is not the time. We have to recognize that the situation we have now makes no sense at all. And the reason I got involved in this at all, and I enjoy talking about it, is that I found out that I lived on a street that There's a paper street, an unaccepted street, an accepted street, a questionable accepted street, and a paper street. 12 people, there are 12 houses on this street, and that's how the street is broken down. It makes absolutely no sense in the 21st century. And the problem with Cynthia Avenue, I can understand why you're here complaining, I understand that. But somebody on Burdock Lane is going to be complaining next. And it goes right down the list until eventually we've done something or haven't done something for everybody. What I would like to see is the town council finally address this issue once and for all. It isn't as though we're the only town that has a problem like this. Apparently, this is a major issue in any number of towns in New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, and Connecticut. There are all sorts of plans for trying to address this issue, some that have been put into effect. I'd like, at some point, for the town council, and at some point when I think it's appropriate, I'll put it back on the agenda, for us to once and for all address how we're going to handle these unaccepted streets. And my own proposal is, as other towns have done, is to come up with a plan where the town of Tiverton finally begins, in some reasonable fashion, rational fashion, over a period of time, an extended period of time, begins to accept these unaccepted orphan streets that seem everywhere in this town. That was my comment. It's a real problem, but taking it street by street, item by item, oh, is it plowed, is it not plowed, does it have lighting, does it have not lighting, has it ever been maintained, was it maintained 20 years ago or 30 years ago? I don't think that's the answer, this piecemeal approach that we're following. And I think what set me off, Joe, was, I think you were there at the last street meeting when the representatives from Burdock Lane were there. And one of the gentlemen read a statement, and one of you can correct me, Steve, that went back, I think, to the 1960s or so, from the president of the town council at that time, going on and explaining how the heck we ever got into this mess, and that we did have a mess, and we were going to finally have to address the unaccepted streets in Tiverton. That was 50 years ago, and we made absolutely no progress in 50 years. Yeah.
Steve, there are some private roads that the residents want to keep private though. So is that counted in the 165?
Country View Estates is not in there, Star Woods is not in there because
They want to keep those
They
private.
wanted to be private,
Okay.
it's documented. But we do provide services in both. We pick up the rubbish in both those cases.
See, that's what,
So we're getting this mismatch of
But that's
services.
what
I think that 164 number is a lot lower than 164.
That's what I was-
The last
that's what I'm asking.
iteration, I feel like we knocked a considerable amount off of that.
I think it was 135 and 120 are in real bad conditions. The other 15 are Star Woods and Country View, so
That seems
that's
about right.
where we're at.
so about 120 we're saying.
About
like that.
120 if you take.
It really doesn't matter, 150 or 120, really.
Could we let Mr. Doherty speak?
Madam President, I wholeheartedly agree with your comments, with one exception being the Cynthia Avenue. One important distinction in the conversation that I think needs to be made is that we feel, and I assert on behalf of my clients, that the town has already accepted Cynthia Avenue as a public street by virtue of its actions. And the reason you talk about the services and what's on there and whether or not the town maintained it, whether it was in a plat recorded and things, because these all come from the case law and the laws of the state of Rhode Island, and these are important factors that you look at, and I'm sure your counsel's going to weigh in on that when he gets the evidence, and she gets the evidence here. But as I said earlier, we have a meeting here tonight, and Cynthia Avenue is the only thing on this agenda. And I think you're going to find, and I'm sure your counsel will tell you, this analysis is engaged in on a fact-intensive basis and a legal act-intensive basis. And With respect to Cynthia Avenue, I think the evidence is especially strong and persuasive that the town, by its own actions, by its assertion of the dominion and control, the granting of permissions, the recording and acceptance of these plats, and the repeated maintenance over the years, over a period of decades. And again, this is all with all due respect to Mr. Berlucci, he wasn't here at that time. Residents were. I believe that the cows have long since left the barn, and I believe, and our assertion is that this has already been accepted by public use. And that's the important distinction that I just wanted the council to be aware of.
All right, so Attorney DeSisto wants to take some time to research all the information and bring it back to us April 27th. All right.
Good evening. I'll be very brief, just two things. The former DPW director that everyone's talking about, he has been a longtime excavator of mine, and he showed me pictures of Cynthia Ave when he was actually DPW director. He said it was always paved, it was always maintained. Okay. Aside from that, the only other thing I would add, a lot of the things I was going to say have already been said, but the only other thing I was going to add is there are people that spoke at this 2013 council meeting that actually have title search and deeds from their homes that indicate that it is a public street, public way, nothing delineating private. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Berlucci, please. What are we paying for that grader, like, cost-wise?
The grade is $130 an hour
$130 an hour.
when we bring them in.
All right, well, what I'm going to ask is that we continue, a motion to continue this to April 27th. Monday, April 27th, where Attorney DeSisto will come back with what he feels is a determination on whether Cynthia Avenue is private or public. Brett, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to see if you wanted to ask if anybody else had. There are other people that haven't spoken. I didn't want to cut them off if they were.
Is there anyone else? I thought, no.
One more comment.
All right.
As some of you have driven down the street, you've probably noticed a giant pile of rocks on the right side of the street on my property. It has been brought up in previous meetings that those rocks are apparently on, I guess, what would be the sidewalk. I just wanted to say that it's not my intention to keep those there. They were put there for two reasons. One, when I moved here, Tiverton forced me to replace my cesspool with a septic system. And the guy who did it wanted way too much money to remove the rocks. That and that land that the rocks are on was actually maintained by myself and my family for the whole time we owned the property. And what was happening was because the road was so bad the last 7 years or so, I was getting moats in that land that was backflooding my property because people would have to drive way off the road onto it. So what I did was when the septic system guy finished, there is a tree line and there's one rock on the far side of my property, right in line with where I put those rocks. I had the guy put them there. So if for whatever reason that comes up in your determination, I just want you to let you know I'm not keeping them there. I'm actually looking for somebody to actually pick them up. I'm just having a hard time finding somebody.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just like to say that the town maintained this road for 40-plus years, and all of a sudden, when it needs paving, this became a big issue.
Thank you.
I would like to make one other comment, is that our paving, just basically this year, we pilfered $65,000 out of that account, so maybe part of the problem is that the paving account has been routinely used as an account that people take when they need funds to be sent to.
We used it to plow, right? Is that what we took that one for? Yeah, right.
You used money of your paving account for plowing.
Yes.
So I'm sure this isn't the first year that it's been done, so I'm just saying that part of the problem could be that we use that account not to pay for the time.
Part of the problem, Peter, in my opinion, is that we don't treat pavement as a capital asset. We treat it as an operation. And we put up a couple of $100,000 in a line item for paving that we really have a need of, it's quite more substantial, and it's not an operational expenditure. It's really a capital expenditure.
So, Brett, just on that same page, because I've been thinking about this over the weekend, and actually I thought about it last week at the Budget Committee, is that maybe we need that paving account to go away. Just
Hang on, we
take
have
it.
two conversations going on at the same time.
Have that paving account just eliminated, and put in a pothole account with a certain amount of money in it, and then put a paving account in under capital. Because what's happening now is, supposedly all the money that's left over in Public Works Department gets rolled over into the paving account, but that's the first account that gets hit every single year, for no matter what, it could be for the fire, police, you name it, paving account gets hit.
And part of that is structurally how it's,
It is, but I think...
And I'll speak for Steve for a minute, and then he can
it's
throw
not Steve.
something at me. No, but part of the reason we've done that in the past, and I won't make excuses, I'll just say why it is we have, because we have, say, a program that is going to cost $600,000, and we only have $300,000, we pave what we can, and if a road costs $275,000 and we have $300,000, we pave the road and we have 25 left over. So there is a piecemeal approach to it, but it's because these are massive chunks of money, and if we have $30,000 left over in the paving account, it doesn't get us very far in paving a road. It'll fill a bunch of potholes and fix some guardrail and things, but it's not going to pave a road. So it is structurally...
So I think we're on the same page where that needs to be in the capital account.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't solve this problem, but it
No,
does address it.
absolutely, but I mean, down the road, it might help us.
Yeah, next budget, we should keep that in mind. Anyone else?
I'll just say, I was asking Mr. Brucci, he was saying it's approximately $400,000 a mile for grinding and paving, so it's, if you're putting only 200,000, that's a half a mile of paving, so 80 miles, what was it, 90?
90 miles.
90 miles. And
Just to comment to Mr. Perry's comments, the Budget Committee is taking up tomorrow night, by either resolution or in the structure of the budget itself, they're looking at putting the paving in the capital account. They're looking at doing that tomorrow night.
I'll be there tomorrow night. Okay, thank you.
And so if I could strike the last word on that, I know that, I personally, all right, go ahead.
I'm just going to make one point. I'm speaking on behalf of one of those people who live on one of the other 120 or 135.
Please introduce yourself, just you.
George Pedro, 25 Tony Street. Again, speaking on behalf of the other people that don't live on Cynthia, it would be great, as Mr. Lambert put it, that we straighten this out, because the streets are just getting ridiculous, and we all, you don't need me to tell you how much the taxes are, but it does seem sad that we can't at least get our streets fixed, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Anyone else?
I have a comment. Can I go? I've been waiting patiently.
She has been.
I just want to make a couple of comments. Just that the mailboxes that are up at the top of the road, that has nothing to do with the road. It has to do with the post office.
Yeah.
I have a town-accepted street, and my mail is at the top of the road. I even put my trash at the top of the road because there's no turnaround. So the mailboxes have nothing to do with the street. Second comment is, yes, I'd like to see this issue resolved for the existing streets that are out there in this condition, but also to review the ordinances for any future development, that this doesn't occur, because we still allow private roads, we allow gravel roads, and I can see this, if you don't stop the bleeding, it's just gonna repeat itself going into the future. So I think that should also be on our to-do list to address that as well.
And that's kind of in the way of also. Anything else? Oh, Matt.
No, I just, if I could get on my knees and beg you to do anything, it would be to create a capital account for paving and set it aside. And as Director Belucci and I have discussed, this isn't a couple $100,000. Over the course of nearly a decade, you need to build this account up and roll a balance from one year to the next and get it up to a couple million, because that's what it really takes to keep your roads safe and up to date across the town. And it would be incumbent upon the administration to find every source of grant leverage we could, whether we could find an economic development hook or some other hook for public infrastructure build-out, because that's how you're going to get the most money out of that. And the only other thought is, just as an observer sometimes to the political debate in town, when you create those kinds of accounts, make sure they have the necessary restrictions in place that inspire public confidence that the money put in there will actually be used for the designated purpose, especially your capital accounts and especially roads. The reason why that account gets hit so often now is it's one of the few truly large accounts. And so if it's not a dire emergency to pave a street and there's a couple $100,000 left in the account, and we run out of money for salt and sand, or we run out of money for some other critical need, that's probably the only place there's going to be sufficient funds to cover it. That's why it happens. So it's not a nefarious intent on anybody's part, it's just that our first and foremost requirement is to live within the budget, the overall bottom line of the whole budget, and not run accounts into the red. And so that's where we end up. But over a long period of time, my only other caveat is, we already have a restricted account for landfill closure, and it's a matter of dispute whether or not there's enough in there or not. But just beware, just because it's a good intent and a public need doesn't necessarily mean the money will be put in. And so it has to be a plan that everybody commits to for the long run, and really make sure you get up to your target balance. Those are my only thoughts, but I just think it's a best practice. It's something we need to try to do.
Matt, if I can add to what you're saying, and I'm not suggesting that this is part of any plan I have, but it's something that I've spoken to Steve about. We all know that eventually we're going to close the landfill, and we've been funding that account for closing the landfill with the pay-as-you-throw program. We typically get $420,000, $430,000, plus we get more right now because we're also getting interest, so it might be about $600,000+ we're getting. But at some point we close the landfill. We cannot end the pay-as-you-throw program. And what I've discussed, and I discussed this with Jim Gonzalo and with Steve Belucci, is that we need a funding device that's going to be aside from all the political considerations, where we won't have to make a judgment every single year and have the budget committee struggling with the numbers. That perhaps one way to fund a paving account in the future will be to make sure that it's a restricted fund, but make sure that the money from the pay-as-you-throw program is going into that paving fund. Because I think it's one issue where most people would not argue. That is, we can argue about, oh, do we need an ambulance, do we need a fire engine, do we need a new police chief's car? But I think everybody in town would agree, my God, we need something to be done with these streets. They're an absolute mess. And I don't think you're going to find much objection, I would hope, to a proposal that would eventually fund the program that Matt is talking about for paving through the pay-as-you-throw program. Now, it may be something similar to that, but the only one that comes to mind is the pay-as-you-throw program, which I know we have to keep.
Well, seeing Mr. Lambert was instrumental in getting pay-as-you-throw, maybe we can put him on the street committee and pay-as-you-drive.
Well, I've started to go to the streets committee now, and that's why I'm coming up with a plan to drive.
He might told me the clock at church.
All right, anyone else from the public? Any further comment from the council?
Just before you finish, I can't let it go because we have money in other accounts that we could have used to cover snow plowing, but we chose to take it out of paving. I mean, future needs, contingency, there was money in both of those. So, that's, as far as restricting, I have to agree, because that's the only way I think the council keeps their hands out of it, is if it's a restricted account.
So, do you want to say something?
No, I mean, I don't disagree with Councilman Souza. There are other accounts. I just, first of all, don't hold your breath, because we're going to get to them, because we had another storm with another one.
Saturday, and maybe next
And
Saturday.
just as a matter of overall triage in our funding, you let the council strike the last word with its contingency fund before, you don't expend it way out 4 months before the end of the fiscal year. Try to let the council have that discretion right up to the end, if you can, at least if you're administrator.
Into paving.
Just don't want to buy a hot box and then not have money to put the tar in the hot box, so it's
Well, it's a fair comment, and you and I discussed this before, that I didn't put the hot box in the capital request for next year, because I had hoped, because as of January, we hadn't any snow this year. So I wanted to buy it cash and have it this year already. So I'm fine with the decision that was made to go ahead and fund it, but frankly, it saves so much money, it's been an intelligent thing to do, so.
You get a better product.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion to continue the Cynthia Avenue discussion for April 27th meeting of the town council.
So moved.
Motion been made and second, all those in favor? Before adjournment, just remind everybody, next Monday at 7 o'clock, there'll be a town council meeting here. Here?
Executive session?
It will be an executive session. We still have to have an open session going to executive.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Motion. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone.